Warning. This podcast features adult subject matter, adult language, and things not meant for children to hear. Viewer discretion is advised. You've been warned. This podcast features adult subject matter, adult language, and things not meant for children to hear. Oh, we could be, might be. I think we are. We are live, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of the I'm No Joe podcast, the show where every armchair quarterback can feel like an Eddie Bravo. Today, as like most days, I have a panel full of folks here ready to dive into the world of MMA and fling some shit against the wall, see what sticks. Today, we have got a couple here to break down this weekend's UFC 240 card with me. First and foremost, this fucking stranger that shows up from time to time, the worst Instagram DM checker in the world, but a great guy to talk MMA with. Nick Devine, how you doing, brother?
All right, what's up, everybody? Yeah, these are, man. Yeah, it's a good card, right? It's a fucking great fight.
It's a card.
Yeah. That last card was pretty good.
We've definitely been spoiled with a couple of decent cards here recently.
Yeah, on ESPN it was good, but yeah, I'm glad to be here.
So glad to have you back, man. And then, as is most cases across the octagon, as it were, on the other side there, my Wednesday night homeboy, my brother from another mother, my MMA compatriot, TJ. How the fuck are you, sir?
I'm fan-fucking-tastic, except for looking at what looks like the set of a fucking cheap porno flick with all this fluff, but you know.
I hear you, and we are most definitely.
I mean, look, we've had some really good ones, but we have to also accept these lulls, which, I mean, I guess when you have a deal with ESPN Plus, you don't have to worry about how many pay-per-view buys you're getting because you know how much Disney is actually paying you. That's right. I didn't say ESPN because they're not paying a dick. It's all Disney.
Guaranteed cheddar from the mouse.
That's it.
Woo-hoo. Yep. We'll definitely get into it. So let's start things off as we do around here. We're going to first dive down into the news and recent events, interesting things that have been announced in the fight world that have happened during the course of the last week that have been exploded into the combat area that we fandom. The first thing I want to talk about here, one of the, I think, least advertised things that I saw this week, but I feel is legitimately relevant. Anderson Silva is now officially a U.S. citizen. He took his citizenship test. He was officially ceremonized, I believe is the term. The spider is officially an American spider now. And it's an interesting thing because I feel like part of it is almost him moving up for his camp. And then part of it is the other half of the story that people don't really latch onto, that his son had his first pro Muay Thai fight this week and stopped the dude in the second round via punches. So the Silva name is very much carrying on in combat sports, and it's doing so here in the US. And that's going to be an interesting little thing to keep an eye on. As we know, Anderson is on the tail end of his career. He's looking for his last couple fights coming up. So with him here rounding out his career and then helping his son start his career from here, it's going to be a nice time to watch the Silva family kind of make that transition. But moving on from Anderson here. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm not going to lie, I'm kind of excited about where this is going for two reasons. One, when he takes his final fight, is he going to do it in his native homeland of Brazil, or is he going to do it in his new native homeland of the United States, now as he is a citizen? The other part of this that makes me very excited, his son, if anybody watched the last fight with Anderson Silva when they had all of the in-depth following him there, they were also showing his son training. His son's a bad motherfucker too. And guess what? You know what? I have this inkling that when it comes time for the Spider to retire, he's not going to really retire, as more so become a coach and corner man for his son. And better to have fucking corner you and coach you and actually be able to walk you through those situations.
Talk about a great name to have in your fucking pocket, man.
I'm just saying, dude, this is a win-win situation for anybody who's an MMA fan, period.
Yeah, this is absolutely a full-on fucking win for the fans. We're getting the best of both worlds here because we're going to see one way or another, like either we get his last fight here or we're going to get to watch him become a coach here for his son after his fighting days are done. But either way, he's working with the PI still, so he's going to be all over the States as well as working with his son. Silva's not coming out of the fight world. He's just about to make that nice little fluid shift into the next phase of it, and we get to watch it firsthand now that he's here. So I'm cool with it.
Oh, yeah.
But the next thing I want to jump over and touch on real quick here, there has been murmurs is the best way I can describe. There have been murmurs coming from several different anonymous sources in the fight world for the last at least year and a half-ish that Amanda Nunes really, really fancies herself a boxer and really idolizes the way that Conor McGregor was able to, as an MMA fighter, step over into the boxing world, get a great name to fight against, and make a great check from it, and as well as show off a lot of skills. Because even though Conor didn't beat Floyd, Conor gained a bunch of respect from the boxing world as a whole, as well as a lot of MMA fighters and coaches who didn't necessarily see that side of Conor's game being that strong for the performance that he put on against arguably one of the greatest defensive boxers of our lifetime, and didn't take a lot of damage in losing at that. So Nunes supposedly has been trying to find herself a McGregor-esque boxing match so that she could do the same thing here. And apparently she, at least to a few people, had mentioned that she wants to go after an Olympian. She wants to go after not just anybody, not just any Olympian. She wants to go after Clarissa Shields. Well, now, that's not a good idea for a multitude of reasons. A 2-second Google search of Clarissa Shields highlight will tell you exactly why you don't want to be standing on the other end of one of those combos that woman throws. But apparently, somehow, one of those little birds that Amanda let this slip to made its way to Clarissa's camp, and she found out about it and has come out and publicly said, not only is she willing to take it, she's more than willing to take it. She relishes the fact that she's been sought out and wants to make that thing happen for Amanda. So whether Amanda gets this next title defense under her belt and goes after Clarissa, or maybe they put her next MMA match on the side to see if they can really take Amanda to that female side of that McGregor-esque boxing era, I think that is going to be an interesting situation because there's no denying Amanda Nunes has ridiculous power in her hands. The way that she baby elephanted Cyborg right onto the fucking canvas is perfect example of that, because that woman was a terrifying nightmare for any female MMA fighter in any weight class for the longest time. And Amanda almost effortlessly went in and face planted her right down on the canvas, out cold. But does that power come with technique and with the footwork that's required to not be able to throw the hands and grapple, not be able to throw kicks and set everything up, but only to use the hands in the sweet science? And I don't know that Amanda has really got that level to go after an Olympic badass like Clarissa Shields. But I tell you what, I'm going to fucking watch, and I think everybody else should too, because this is going to be one hell of an awakening. Either we're going to see a side of Amanda that nobody knew we had, or we're going to watch Amanda learn in real time the difference between striking and boxing.
See, this stuff, when this happens, it just tells me that their MMA is not paying enough to these fighters, because MMA is supposed to be, you come over here and see if the boxer, that's what it started out to be. Who's the toughest, the boxer, the sumo wrestler, the jiu-jitsu guy. So it just felt like, why don't they want to come over here and do it? Why does everybody have to go to boxing? It just doesn't, it it sucks that they're not paid enough and that they have to go other places because she's paid plenty enough to not want to think about going somewhere else.
You know, and you're exactly right on that.
Yep.
This right here, that scratch, they've got an itch, and it is definitely not getting scratched when it comes to that. Because you know what? The second they made that Reebok deal, that screwed every fighter, minus the few tippy top draw fighters. Every other one below them, though, it fought 6 ways from Sunday. So you see guys going out and wanting to make those big paychecks. So they'll go fight other promotions if they have to. With secondary UFC contracts done, you see a lot of them not even trying to come back to the UFC. That's why you're seeing Bellator snatching up fantastic fighters.
Yep.
You're seeing ONE FC making deals. People are nowhere. They're going where the money is. Conor McGregor did the same thing, and he did it fucking brilliantly. Not only did he show that he has hands in the boxing world and the sweet sciences, but he also made the paycheck. He knew what he was doing. I think what Amanda's doing is the same type thing. Like if you look at, was it her last pay-per-view payout? I think she made prior to bonuses and all that other shit. It was $500,000.
Something like that, yeah.
$500,000. Look,
or no, I think it was 600.
Yeah, but somewhere in that
$500,000,
ballpark. For you or I, that's a fuck ton of money. That pays my house off like 4 times over. For her, though, she could be making a lot more because you know what, right now, if she still had that opportunity to wear fucking whatever sponsorship she wanted on her shorts or her fucking tank top or whatever it is she's fighting in, whatever fight gear, she'd be making a fuck ton more money because that's where most of those fighters were making their money. Now, boxing, on the other hand, that is a money sport. That is look, I always say there's a huge difference between boxing and MMA. MMA, in my opinion, that's fucking fighting because you're using anything and everything you possibly can to dismantle your opponent. Boxing, however, that's an art form.
Yeah.
Guess what? If you go to any fine art gallery to buy a piece, you're going to pay through the nose for it. That's why these fighters get paid so goddamn much. Now, the other caveat to that is another reason why they get paid so much. Look what just happened this last week. Yep, that's right. Holy shit, I didn't even realize I said it. But yes, Boxer died.
Yep.
After the fight, he was still alive when he left, went to the hospital, was treated for brain bleeds, and ended up succumbing to his injuries from the fight.
Yep.
Why? Because they take a hell of a lot more punches. They may not be as hard or as strong as you see in MMA, but they take a hell of a lot more of them in a 12-round fight than what you're seeing in a 3 or 5-round fight in the UFC. Or in bare knuckle boxing, for that matter. You look at those things, of course they're going to get paid more because there's a lot more damage they have to deal with. Because, look, it's kind of that old moniker of you can sit here and tap on your arm. A couple times you do this for 30, 45 minutes, that little spot on your arm is going to get sore as fuck. You got to think about that. They're doing that for 11 rounds. They're rock'em sock'em robots where you don't see often a boxer who's a very good boxer that is just nothing but a knockout artist. There is not very many of those around. Mike Tyson was one of them. Evander Holyfield was known for it as well, but there's not a huge long list. And even Holyfield wasn't a knockout artist like what Tyson was.
Right.
But you look, those guys, they take a lot more damage. So of course there's more money in it for them. And also people want to pay to see the arts. So it's one of those things where, in all honesty, boxing is still bigger than MMA when it comes to money and promotion wise. So you look at it, boxing is more worldwide known because there's boxing in every fucking country you go to. There's not MMA in every country. I mean, look, France just lifted their fucking ban on MMA that doesn't actually go into effect until January. So it makes sense for them to go over and make those fights. Although I don't foresee her having the skills that to take on a boxer because she has a huge toolbox, but it's not specifically in the art form of boxing. The other fighters have to worry about every other part of her game. When she goes into a boxing ring, that Olympic champion boxer only has to worry about one thing: hands. She's been doing this at an elite level in this art form for a very long time. To not have to worry about kicks, takedown, grappling, dirty boxing, being pushed up against the fence, those types of things, to be honest, I just don't see her getting it done. Look, I didn't see Connor getting as far as he did, but he surprised the fuck out of me. He only ended up losing that fight because he couldn't ride the bike as well as fucking Mayweather did. And you know what? My hat's off to the greatest defensive boxer of all time and that I think we'll ever see.
Yeah, most likely.
But, you know, I just don't think that the Lioness has that in her. If I'm her, yes, take the match for the money, but no, when you come out with a loss, don't be surprised. Don't let it hurt the rest of what you're doing.
Right.
You're still the GOAT. Because you know what? You put that boxer in that MMA cage, she's going to get her ass whipped.
Well, and a perfect example of like you were saying, the promotion just not paying them what they're worth. Examples of that I saw literally today as I was watching back through the embedded for this fucking event that we're having this weekend here. Sure, all their fight kits, all their shirts, their shorts, their, you know, the breezers and shit, it's all Reebok. But the casual clothes that they're walking around in, if you look, even Max Holloway walking around Canada, sponsored t-shirts. It ain't Reebok. He's got to get that chance in whenever he can to show the other sponsors when he's allowed to, because he's just walking around. He's not officially in the fight, so he doesn't have to wear that all Reebok gear right now. Even he's wearing other sponsor shit so that he can keep what little sponsors he's still allowed to have on board, because the UFC isn't paying even the fucking champions what they deserve compared to other sports.
Yep. I did catch that. Right when he was in the mall today, when they had the release for today's video. Yep. And then in the mall up there on the balcony, and you could see it as he's pointing stuff out there, and going, yep, it all makes sense.
Yep.
That's the guy that did the first bottle kick. That's who owns that company. The clothing company.
Yep.
Was the first guy to do the bottle kick, and then Max did it.
And then he set Max up for it, and then it went fucking crazy from there.
Yeah.
Yep. So, moving along from that shit, this is an interesting story, but it definitely bears talking about here. The average super casual fan will generally not recognize this name or understand why it's so important, but it's definitely worth looking into if you're not familiar with it. What I'm talking about here is Nick Newell. Now, Nick Newell is a disabled fighter. He only has one arm. The other arm, he only has just up to the elbow itself. That being said, he has a 15-2 professional record, with the two losses being a bad KO and then a fight with Justin Gaethje that went to decision. Like, this kid is tough as fucking nails, one arm or not. Bellator signed him to a one-fight deal because the UFC would not. The UFC gave him a shot on the Contender Series, which was a very, very close match, a very hard match, and then Dana opted not to sign him. Go fucking figure. Color me surprised. Dana didn't want someone controversial on his shiny show. Big fucking surprise here. But Bellator, unlike Dana, Scott Coker was willing to give Nick a one-fight contract, or to give him, a chance to get out there on the pro stage and see what he can do against legitimate pros, not Contender Series. Because no matter how much Dana tries to shove the fucking Contender Series down the fans' throats, the fights are only exciting if you're watching them for the fight that they are. The difference is that the UFC is trying to promote the wins in the Contender Series with a contender against a contender, as if these people were winning a UFC fight against already ranked UFC fighters. And that's just not the case. That's like cheering for your local high school football quarterback like he's Tom fucking Brady. And yeah, sure, you want the guy to get the hype, but you don't need to give that fucking ego. You can't make that same assumption or that same qualification when you're trying to promote. It's just fucking weird. So good on Nick Newell. I definitely want to keep an eye on how this fight turns out.
You know, you brought up a point in there that I just have to go over. And that's the Dana White keeping his shiny shit shiny. No, his shit is not shiny. Because those of us who do watch and are in the know watched last week's fights. And there is the largest shit stain that looks like it came out of a truck stop bathroom that was fighting on that card. I'm not going to mention said cocksucker's name because it's not worth bearing. In fact, if he died in front of a fucking truck because he was on fire, I wouldn't piss on him to put him off. So I think it's just Dana doesn't want to put, oh my God, somebody has a disability. What are people going to say? I think that's that, but yet he's willing to put people who have poor life choices and get kicked out of other sports, a la NFL, because they can't keep their fucking hands to themselves, into the UFC, but you won't put a guy with one arm who hasn't put his hands on anybody except for an MMA fighter. Go fuck right off.
Hand.
Look,
Put his hand.
hand. Excuse me. No offense. No offense, Nick. I don't feel like fighting you because I've seen your fights. I know exactly what you're capable of. And to be honest, I will say that is a guaranteed one time I will get my ass kicked by a one-armed man. Guaranteed.
Yep. Yeah. Nick Duel's a bad motherfucker. He's definitely worth looking into for the uninitiated.
And thank you for putting who shall not be named in the fucking comments, Nick, you dick. I was trying to avoid that from happening, but whatever. So those of you who are listening can go ahead and read the comments because I'm still not going to say his name. It's like saying Voldemort. You just don't do it. Oh, whoops. Let that one out of the bag.
I put that as soon as Meter said which Dana White wasn't going to be controversial. I seen you put your hand up. I wrote that in the chat.
Oh, yeah. You knew exactly the second I put my hand up. I was like, nope, fuck that guy.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. If he's worried about being controversial, he needs to drop that motherfucker. But obviously that's not happening because I feel like I keep getting raped by this large piece of shit that should be nowhere near any sort of combat sport because of what he's done in his past.
Right.
Should not have any spotlight on him at all. In fact, he shouldn't even be fighting amateur fights. The dude should not be allowed to do any sort of physical violent sport. No boxing, no kickboxing, no fucking wrestling. No goddamn wrestling on WWE. That's not wrestling. Yeah, he can't even do that. Fuck him.
Somebody's going to whoop his ass. I actually can't wait until he moves up that line. I can't wait until he does. I can't wait until we get to Ngannou or something. Somebody's going to whoop his ass real bad.
We said it last week. I'm just hoping that when that does happen, we see Dan Henderson come out of retirement for just a brief moment to fly into the cage as he's laying there unconscious and drop an H-bomb and then immediately disappear out of the cage to never be seen again. That's all I'm saying. Just fuck that guy.
I agree. So, moving along, but sticking in the vein of people that Dana White has fucked on giving their shot, Brandon Loughnane, the man that everyone in the world went, what? When Dana passed on him on the Tuesday Night Contender Series, when winning his fight is exactly what Dana told them to do to get their contract, and he did. And Dana passed on him because he secured a takedown to make sure he won a round before the end of the fight. And Dana didn't think he went for it enough. Go watch that fucking fight. He went for it plenty. Dana passed on him on the Contender Series, and he has now signed with the PFL and is now chasing that $1 million season prize. So good for Brandon Loughnane for getting a chance to get that paycheck that Dana White was too dumb to fucking sign, because that kid is energetic as shit. He has got fucking heart and he has got potential, and he is going to be a contender in the PFL. I'm very, very certain of it here.
You know what's funny? I think the PFL is getting ready to make a big run at Bellator and UFC.
I
Because they
agree.
seem to slowly be stacking the cards. And when I say slowly, it's not very slow. They seem to be scooping people up left and right. So pretty soon, that and they're on fucking ESPN every goddamn Thursday night. So, I
Yes,
mean,
because
they're
UFC
on
is not the only MMA on ESPN anymore. They now have UFC and PFL, and the PFL is all fucking year long, just the same.
yeah, so it's there. I'm just saying they're gonna make a run at it, and Big Daddy Dana's not gonna like it because he's under contract with ESPN, so he's gonna have to fucking deal with it whether he likes it or not.
Yep. But moving along from there, another interesting MMA / boxing kind of crossover, kind of not really. It has been confirmed that talks are on, contracts are being negotiated as we speak for one Artem the Goat Lobov to have an exhibition boxing match with the one and only Amir Khan. It is happening. It is confirmed by both Artem and John Kavanagh. It is going down. They are working out the fine print. This is going to be spectacular. Anyone who has seen any of the bare knuckle FC that has been going on will know that while he might not have been the best in the MMA world, when the GOAT himself stepped into the world of bare knuckle boxing, with him came this crown made of badassery. He is the face of bare knuckle boxing, figuratively and literally. And to think that Amir Khan thinks highly enough of him to give him his Connor-esque moment, to coin the phrase, and take his side over to the boxing world to try and catch that check and try and get some respect for them hands. This is going to be fucking interesting because Amir Khan is great, but much like the Connor to Floyd ratio, experience-wise, Khan is definitely on the back nine of his boxing career, whereas Artem is still a fucking young guy. He's very vital. He's still in his fucking prime. So if Artem can tune in his boxing the same way that we're thinking that Amanda might be able to tune in her boxing, we might just be witnessing the beginning of the trend here that Connor abso-fucking-lutely started. And I'm not 100% in support of every MMA guy or girl running out and trying to call themselves out an exhibition boxing match. But I think people who have proven themselves on the higher tier of this, like a Conor McGregor, like an Amanda Nunes, like the fucking GOAT himself, I think they absolutely deserve a chance to make that cross-promotional jump, show off some skills, and make a little fucking bread to help feed the family here. And it can't be bad because in a situation much like with Connor's, if he loses to a boxing great. But if he wins, he's the MMA guy, or girl in Amanda's case, that came over to the other world and shocked the sweet science community in, a spectacular upset that everyone will talk about forever. So it's a weird trend, but again, I'm gonna fucking watch it, and I think a lot of people should as well because this is gonna be very interesting.
I when you say trend, I don't think it's a trend anymore. I think it's going to be the new norm. Eventually, these bigger guys, even look, uh, I could even see fucking Max Holloway doing it.
Absolutely.
Max has hands. That's what he's known for. He's known for his hands, and he doesn't throw hard. He throws a lot,
Volume,
and that
yeah.
translates really well to the art of boxing. I'm just saying I can see that with any of those top tier fighters. But like you said, I don't want to see some fucking middle of the road guy going over there fucking trying to throw hands in the boxing ring. I don't want to watch that garbage.
Yeah.
No, I will, however, I'm not going to go out and advocate for it, but I will definitely be watching those fights when it's those top tier MMA guys that want to go check out guys or gals. Excuse me, I don't want to mix anybody out of that conversation there. I need to keep myself easy in that aspect of things. But no, I don't think it's going to be so much as a trend anymore as it's going to be kind of that new norm because I think part of that is cross promotion. Anytime that they go over, they're going to pull boxing fans.
Yep.
So I don't see how it hurts the sport any. Everybody said, oh, when Hunter did it, it's going to hurt MMA. No, it didn't hurt MMA at all.
The least bit, no.
It actually made a bunch of new fans because you know what? They saw it as, holy shit, these guys do know what they're doing. Maybe we should be watching them. They're not just, to paraphrase, human cockfighting, you know? So I think it'll be a good thing, but only if those guys that are at the top of the game are the ones that are going and doing these cross-promotional types events. And cross-sport events, I shouldn't say cross-promotional, because it's not a cross-promotional. What Bellator is doing is cross-promotional, and that's fucking fabulous.
Right.
But, the cross-sports thing is definitely a cool thing to see as well, though, because it'll bring fans from both worlds to see each other's sports, which is even better, because you know what? Boxing in its own right is great for what it is.
And everybody wins in that situation. Whether you like boxing or you like MMA, when they start cross-promoting each other, everyone wins, because you'll get to see the best of both worlds. Because even in a situation like we don't want to see, with every Tom, Dick, and Harry and Jane calling out every boxer that's got a fucking name behind him that's worth a check, even the few that are going to start to initially inevitably get through are going to be seen for exactly what they are, and just a shallow attempt at a money grab. And then it's going to get to the point where there's not going to be any promotion for any shit like that, even when it does start to happen. And we're only really going to hear about the big matchups like this, where the guys who deserve their crack over there.
Yep. And to be honest, I'm excited Artem is getting that shot, because you know what? He obviously proved might not be the best MMA fighter in the world, but that dude can throw fucking hands. Look what he did to Mr. Malinaji.
Well, look what he did to Jason Knight, and they're friends. Those guys are legitimate friends. And look at that 5-round fucking literal slobber knocker.
Yeah, the dude can throw hands, and to get to go up against a legend in the art of boxing, that's fucking fantastic. To know that Amir Khan was that impressed with him to say, yeah, let's fucking do this.
Yeah, man.
I want that challenge, because look, Amir Khan's been around long enough. He's not going to look past him. He knows better.
Yep. He
didn't get to where he was by looking past opponents. So that's going to be a fucking hell of a fucking exhibition fight. And I can't wait to see it.
So moving along from there real quick. Surprise, fucking surprise. Again, inevitably in the fucking news, it's almost like we called this exact fucking event to happen the moment that the travesty came about. The travesty that I'm talking about in this particular situation was the Rose Namajunas versus Jessica Andrade fight, with the pile driver / neck slam that resulted in the fight getting ended and Rose losing the belt to Jessica Andrade. Prior to that happening, Jessica Andrade had fought Joanna Jędrzejczyk and very handily lost. And color no one shocked here, now that Jessica Andrade is the one who has the belt, Joanna Jędrzejczyk has immediately come out of the woodwork and jumped to the forefront, saying that not only does Andrade not deserve the belt, that Joanna is coming to take her belt back, and that she's seen Andrade's new training camp. She remembers seeing video of the old training camp as nothing has changed, and she'll be able to expose all the same holes, yada, yada, fucking boogie woman bullshit. Jesus titty fucking Christ. Can we please get Joanna a fight that's going to silence her? I mean that in the nicest way, because I love her as a fighter, but as a person, she just needs somebody to slap the shit out of her and tell her to shut the fuck up for a minute. She doesn't seem to fully appreciate the fact that not only is she not the champion anymore, but she has almost consistently, since she lost that championship belt, had her ass handed to her heartily in every single match in multiple weight classes now since she lost that belt. Valentina beat her ass just mercilessly, the same way in the octagon for the UFC she had in the Muay Thai world several times before. Just nothing that she is doing shows that she deserves or should even be in the conversation about talking about that belt. And yet here she is getting exposure through the UFC to do just that again. So it feels again like Daddy Dana is twisting that camera lens to try and point it to exactly what he wants pushed, rather than what the fans out of this particular fucking organization want to see. Because look at the social media, look at the Instagram, look at the Twitter, look at the fucking Facebook. Yes, she still does and always will have a core group of fans, but everyone always does. When you get to that big of a platform, you will always have a certain core group of fans. But by and large, for the most part, the world is fucking done hearing her spout her rhetoric at this point. Nothing that she has done shows that she has what it takes to get back to where she was. Nothing shows that she deserves a chance to go back to where she was. But yet here we go again, having to hear her drone on. And it's disheartening at this point.
Do you know what it sounds like to me when she's doing this?
What's that?
It reminds me of one other former champion, a la Ronda Rousey. Same concept is going on here, and they're trying to, again, shove something down the throat because that's what they did with the last one. Because, oh my God, no, fuck off. We've seen it. Make her work her ass back up for it. Don't hype her. She's past the hype train. That hype train has now been officially derailed. Nothing against Joanna. She was a fantastic champion. She fucking waylaid the piss out of quite a few people on the way.
Oh, yeah.
I have nothing against her as far as a fighter. She is fabulous. Love watching her fight. However, this shit has got to stop. When somebody is on that bad of a rough patch, don't hype them up. Maybe give them, if you want to hype them up, give them a fight that's a nice, even fight where they have a chance to shine. But they have to earn it.
I agree. I agree completely.
Stop throwing them into the limelight. Stop throwing people into this. Stop throwing anybody into the limelight who you think you want us to be fans of. Because a lot of them, we're not fans of. Some of them, we are fans of, but we're sick of their bullshit. And some of them will never have fans. In fact, some of them can go fuck a donkey. That's all I care. You know, I'm saying this. She does right now. She sounds like Ronda Rousey did when Ronda Rousey lost that title, and then promptly got her ass swiftly handed to her on multiple occasions. Same thing's happening with Joanna. She just needs to learn to accept that fact that they have happened. She's no longer the champ, and just keep trying to drive back forward towards that. When you get that belt in, by all means, feel free to talk shit and do your thing. Blast your rhetoric out again, because then you have all the right. At this point, you need to shut the fuck up, get back in the gym, get back on the fucking bike, whatever you have to do to put yourself back into that title contention spot. But if they go and they fucking just hand feed her back to the top, I'm going to be a very upset individual. And at that point, I might have to say, you know what? Fuck it. I'm not pulling for Joanna anymore if they do that. It's not because I don't like her as a fighter, but when shit like that happens, how many people do you know? Okay, let's just, for example, just use this as a hypothetical situation. Excuse me. Let's say we get a random fucker off of a contender series. And there is a title fight scheduled this weekend in the featherweight division. No other featherweights are available, except for this one guy who won a fight off of a contender series. Says, okay, I'll take it on fucking 3 days notice. He's going to get in there. He's going to get a huge hype train just because they pulled him off of a fucking contender series and got thrown into the fucking wolves. I'm going to get behind that hype train. You know why? Because you're the luckiest motherfucker alive to have something like that happen. However, the other side of that coin, let's say hypothetically, you were a former champ, and hypothetically, you've gotten your ass kicked multiple times in a row, but you somehow hypothetically get your ass another title shot right away. Go fuck right off.
Yeah, very
That
Holly
train has left the station. That's
Very
what I'm saying.
Holly-esque again.
It's bullshit. I'm just saying. Dana, take your fucking motives, turn them sons of bitches sideways, and stick them right up your ass because I'm sick of them. I'm done.
It seems like the UFC needs to look into importing more female fighters for every single weight class because there's just not a lot. There actually the one weight class is terrible. One weight class is like what, 3 people?
Yeah, I think 3 or 4 people in the 145 weight division right now.
Yeah, they just need to really invest in getting more female fighters in because I think that's the main issue is that Ioana's beat everybody else.
Right. Yeah, they have it cycled a lot through.
Yeah, now it's like if she won the belt, that's forcing a Rose Ioana fight again. And it's
Right.
like nobody wants to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's a trilogy that nobody wants and we shouldn't have to see.
I'm not gonna lie. I kind of want to see that just so I can watch fucking Ioana quit again. Because she will quit.
Yeah.
She quit on her own. As a champ, she fucking quit.
Yep.
That made me lose a lot of respect for her as a fighter. When you're the champ, you go out on your fucking shield. You don't fucking tap. You go to sleep, goddammit.
And worse than that, she tapped to strikes and then said she didn't tap to strikes, even when being physically shown the video of her tapping to strikes. So it's like, not only did she lose in a poor way, then she denied it to the video evidence that was directly being shown to her. It's like, come on, man. Really? Really?
Yeah, fucking bullshit.
I agree. But speaking of interesting bullshit here, that brings me to the next one that I want to take a little second to talk about here. It is definitely starting to get more traction now, but did not ironically get a lot of traction when it initially happened. I'm talking about the presser event that was just held for the upcoming Bellator Dublin card. Richard Keeley and Michael Venom Page had their particular face-off, and MVP, in typical D-bag fashion that he usually presents, came walking out on his phone and didn't even bother to look up. Was playing on his phone as he walked out, stopped, didn't look at the cameras, didn't look at his opponent, stared down at his phone. So, of course, Richard Keeley, being the true Irishman that he is, put his thumb finger right in front of MVP's face, which didn't get the response that he expected. So he tried it a little closer and still didn't get the response he expected. So he literally just stepped right in front of MVP for the onlook of cameras that immediately you could hear like little mini machine guns started clickety click fucking clicking all over the room as nobody wanted to miss how this was going to go down. And sure enough, we were not disappointed because as soon as Richard Keeley stepped in front of MVP, MVP tried to play the nonchalant cool guy and put his hand on Keeley's shoulder and started to grab to move him, which immediately sparked Keeley to turn around and slap MVP's hand off his shoulder, which promptly got MVP to shove him nearly off the stage, but ironically directly into the awaiting arms of the onslaught of security guards that then bum rushed the stage and separated the two of them. MVP was then escorted off the stage where Richard Keeley then stood and proceeded to take the rest of the presser picture solo. So this is obviously hyping up to be I guess the right word would be a very familiar scenario we've seen time and time again here where two gentlemen clearly don't like each other, and it shines all the way through in the press events leading up to the fight here. So this is definitely a fight that if you haven't planned to tune into, I encourage you to look into that one as well. MVP is not so hot to trot right now, despite his trying to play the Mr. Cool Cucumber role. He's not on any kind of a brag-worthy or noteworthy streak right now. Richard Keeley not being the biggest name in the MMA world either, but at this point in the game, I'm willing to put my chips on him way more than MVP.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure Keeley got that in the bag. I mean, I don't know what MVP's problem is. You would figure he would have gotten some sense knocked into him after that last fight, but you know, I'm saying apparently, he falls under that category. If you're gonna be dumb, you better be tough.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? Yeah, you would think that the Lima punch would have sent his brain back a peg or two on the ego scale, but apparently that was not the case. Now, speaking of people whose ego scale is definitely out of proportion right now based off of a what decision, Angela Hill has been announced to be headlining, or excuse me, not to be headlining, but her fight has set to be announced for the September 21st card against Estela Nunez. Angela Hill has a pair of back-to-back losses sandwiched around a very debatable decision, as they referred to it on the MMA breakdown on UFC the other day. She feels very much to me like she is becoming one of these female gatekeepers, because she has not shown any potential really to actually be moving up the ranks, to be improving her game, to be, worthy of getting the press and push that the UFC keeps giving someone with a constant downsliding record. But here we are again. She's got another fight. This will be her 4th fight in the last 12 months. So fingers crossed she does better this time, question mark.
Bringing Angela Hill up again. Every time, I swear to God, we talk about her, I keep saying the same thing. The only reason they're not cutting her is because that division is not deep enough yet.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can call her the gatekeeper. I just call her the resident soup can.
Basically, at this point. Disappointing as that is, though, there are several other recent fight announcements that have been made that I do want to take a quick second to run down here. The official destination has changed for the upcoming UFC 243 card, originally slated for the one and only T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, built specifically for UFC events, has been changed last minute, confirmed as of this week. It will now take place down in I can't read the name of the stadium that I wrote down, but it will be taking place in Melbourne for one Israel the Last Stylebender Adesanya's attempt to unify his interim belt versus the one and only Robert Bobby Knuckles Whittaker. That is going to be one of the greatest fights of 2019. I have zero doubt, and they are doing it in Robert Whittaker's backyard at the behest of Adesanya. He did not want the UFC and specifically fought against the UFC making this fight in New Zealand, which would have been tremendous unto itself. He specifically wanted this in Australia. He said he wanted Robert to sleep in his own bed every night of fight week, see his kids every night of fight week, and not be uncomfortable one bit while he defends his belt for what is to be his potential last time. And oh my goodness, that is going to be a spectacular event.
Dude, that right there, where he had that interview where he said that was all. I want him to be comfortable because I don't want any excuses when he loses that belt.
Yep.
That maybe have been the greatest sly-handed, I'm going to fuck your world up comments I've ever heard in my life.
Cool as a cucumber. Willie said it too.
Dude, I'm going. And he wasn't being disrespectful. He's just saying, this is how it's going to be. Sleep tight. I'm ready to take it out of your own backyard.
Yep.
Yeah, hopefully that. The only thing I don't like about that is Whittaker's track record of being able to make a fight in Australia, because it's been the last 2 he's been scheduled and he hasn't made them. Hopefully he does. That would be awesome if he gets the fight there. I mean, hopefully 3rd time's a charm. Hopefully it's not a Tony Khabib situation.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, and ironically, speaking of 3rd time's a charm, the headline for this weekend for the card that we're talking about here, Frankie Edgar and Max Holloway have been contracted, scheduled to fight 3 separate times. This being the first time both of them have been able to make it all the way through fingers crossed, tomorrow morning being the official weigh-ins. This has been the first time these two have actually been able to make it to the dance. So I hope Whitaker and Adesanya get to do it as well, because that's going to be a fucking spectacular war down under. Next fight I want to take a quick second to mention here that was just announced. This one wasn't so much just announced as that it was just announced that it's been moved for the third time. 3 seems to be the strikes going along here on this one. I'm talking about one Volkan No Time Ozdemir versus Air Latifi. They have been moved again for the third time. These poor gentlemen just want to get in the ring and get it over with. We now have the official date. They've been promised no more moves. August 10th, we will see these two climb into the octagon and finally end that question that a lot of people have been wondering, who of those two will come out the better man. Now, we talked a little bit about this next gentleman last week when we were talking about some of the free agency that has been being gobbled up by other organizations as well. One that I was very happy to see got snatched up very quickly. Talking, of course, about Miles Fury Jury being released from the UFC and then almost immediately being snatched up by Bellator. Well, they are not wasting any time getting him right in the action here. They have scheduled him to be welcomed into the Bellator arms by none other than the one, the only Benson Henderson himself. September 27th, just around the corner. They are getting him in there. They are getting him going, and they are not throwing him any favors. They are letting him get right in with the Sharks and start swimming. And I think that is going to be a spectacular match unto itself as well. Both of those gentlemen, Benson clinging for dear life, but still very dangerous in his MMA career. And Miles Fury Jury, just always a problem for anyone you put him up against here. That's going to be a spectacular matchup. Next one that I want to mention here real quick, Chris the All-American Weidman has officially been granted a date for his debut at the 205 light heavyweight class, October 18th, a rare Friday UFC card against the one and only Dominic Reyes. Now, you want to talk about not getting any room for slouches when you make an introduction here. Miles Jury's not getting any easy work. Chris Weidman is most definitely getting kicked in with the piranhas here because Reyes is on a tear and he is no slouch to be overlooked here. Weidman has never competed in the UFC at 205. Apparently, he's done a lot of gym work at 205, but as we all know, gym work ain't the same as genuine UFC experience, especially when you're talking to a guy that's in the top 10 like Reyes. So that's definitely going to be one that you're going to want to keep an eye on as well, I think.
And that's a big jump for him, too.
Yes,
that's that same thing we just saw happen to Luke Rockhold. 20-pound jump.
Yep.
20-pound jump's no joke. Don't get me wrong.
A whole new world.
Weidman is a former champ.
Yep.
So he knows what to expect. But that 20 pounds, that's a whole lot more power when that guy's cutting fucking to make 205.
Yes, it is. And if you look at Reyes, he looks very skeletonish when he steps on the scale at 205. So you got to know that guy is cutting hard weight to make 205. Weidman, former 185 champion, competed as well a little bit, I believe, at 170 even. So while he can cut, he doesn't have as much to cut from as a big guy like Reyes does. So this is going to be a very interesting experience to see Chris go through here, I think.
You know what I find kind of weird about that? Look at both of those two guys, Shitbag Rockhold, and I do like Chris Weidman. I'll say that. I like Chris Weidman. He's honestly a genuinely nice guy. He's not an overly cocky cocksucker like said guy who just got his jaw broken.
Mm-hmm.
But no, he's honestly a nice guy. But it seems like these guys are getting to the latter halves of their careers where they realize they're having a lot more trouble cutting weight. And so they're trying to extend the life of their career by going up weight class. Unfortunately, their weight class that they were at is a 20-pound jump. It's not like going from 170 to 185 where it's 15 pounds, and you probably pulled 170 before, but going up 20 pounds to somebody who's probably walking weight, probably 250, that's a huge fucking jump up in power. Don't get me wrong, you're going to have a little bit of speed on them. Not a lot, because it's still just 205. Some of those 205 guys can go down to 185 if they wanted to, but that's a huge jump, and I'm hoping he doesn't get his jaw broken. That's all I'm thinking.
He's definitely got to watch his ass, that's for sure, because as great as Weidman is, and I'm a big fan as well, he's shown that there are absolutely some tanker truck size holes in his game that can and have been exploited before as well. So it's going to be interesting. It's one of those we definitely want to tune in for. Couple more things I want to run down real quick here. The next one, it's weird. It was a good match. The publicity after the fact is what's given me the most issue with. I'm talking about this past weekend's Manny the Pac-Man Pacquiao versus Thurman. Now, Pacquiao looked spectacular, doing a little shuffle dance at the end of a round, had some good knockdowns, had some crisp and beautiful shots landed, just worked Thurman like a job. The problem was, after the match was over, specifically Fox, the most that I had seen of any of them, only was showing highlights where Thurman was getting shots off on Pacquiao. They didn't show the knockdown that Manny got on him in round one. They missed most of the best clean shots that Pacquiao landed on Thurman, and there was more than just a couple here. But it looked very much like Fox was going out of their way to only release highlights that Thurman was doing good in an effort to try and keep pushing him as the younger face of the division, despite just getting worked by one of the oldest dogs still walking the block. Granted, Pacquiao is no slouch and never has been, but the Manny that we saw this last weekend was not the same Pacquiao that we saw in the ring against Floyd a little while back. He is very much more active. He is more vital. He looked more crisp than he did. And I understand that there was a shoulder issue when he fought Floyd, and I get that. But the Pacquiao that we saw, if you watch the actual real highlights that have been shown, aside from this Fox nonsense, you'll get a better view that Pacquiao was smooth. He was crisp. He was hard to hit. He was moving. He was fluid. He looks, I don't want to say it, but he really does look better now than he did when he was in his, quote unquote prime. I think we're in one of those weird situations where Manny might actually have retired a little bit before he should have, and might really genuinely be on the right path in coming out of retirement and going back at all the young guys that are flooding that division in the WBC right now. I get that he wanted to do the politics thing, and that's cool. After fighting career, it's still there, obviously. But I think this might be the right move for Pacquiao to get back in the ring and beat some ass again.
He did release a statement saying he will not fight again this year. Or he said it would probably be sometime mid to late next year, because he doesn't want to go deal with the politics, because that's right now what he's focused on. He's not going to give up training or anything. I know that.
Yeah, no
but
way.
He looked like the Pacquiao of old, like in his prime, if not better, in my opinion. To be honest, there is a whole lot of fight left in that dog, dude. That's for sure. And he proved it. That young buck didn't know what hit him.
No. He was so out of his element.
And the only thing that made it worse is how many excuses I saw coming out of his corner after the fight was over. And I'm like, dude, take it on the chin. You lost to an all-time great.
Exactly.
There's no shame in that. The only time I could see you bitching and complaining about it afterwards, if it was a Pacquiao that was 70 years old and beat your ass.
Right.
Then
you get beat up by old man Chuck. You get to complain about it.
Yeah, you get in there and face fucking. If we're gonna talk Chuck Norris, and Chuck Norris whips your ass right now, then yeah. you got some bitching to do. But in this case, no. You have a guy who is semi-retired, who is still looking like he's in his prime and can still take on the greatest in the world and beat them. In fact, right now, I think he would have fought Floyd in this fight. The way he looked in this fight, he would have beaten Floyd.
Yeah, it would have been a very different fight. That's for damn sure.
Yeah. But yeah.
Pacquiao says that he doesn't want to fight the rest of the year. I think what the problem here is boxing's paying these guys too much money.
Our crossover talk earlier.
Oh, absolutely. But the last little tidbit of news here that I do want to talk about, unfortunately, we are going to end on a low note despite some of the good high notes that we just trudged away through. It was officially announced this week that John Jones, his outside the octagon shenanigans, have once again caught up with him. He has officially been charged with battery due to an incident back in April for, I believe the direct quote was, grabbing, groping, kissing, and choking a waitress at a strip club in New Mexico. He went in immediately, paid his bond, so they revoked the warrant that was initially issued for him for his arrest. So his warrant has been retracted, but this is just another example of a guy who could have had the world on a platter handed to him, fed to him on a golden fork for the rest of his life if he just would have stopped doing stupid shit. And despite the multiple chances he has been given, despite all the pretty phrasing and, public statements that he has made to say that he's changed, he's better, he's learned, his actions keep showing us that he hasn't. And this is just another time, it feels like, where John Jones says, I'm not him anymore. I don't do that. I'm taking this serious. I understand what I have at risk. And then he turns around when the camera's off and he does dumb shit. It's just another reason that I and many, many other MMA fans are off the John Jones train. At this point, I don't give a shit what your in-ring accomplishments are. You're proven to be a waste of fucking humanity here. You're throwing away opportunities that guys would quite literally sweat and blood, sweat, bleed, and cry for. And you're squandering it like it's a scratch-off lottery ticket. And that's insulting for guys who put in the work and do their time and don't get the crack because John Jones is John Jones. We've seen them uproot entire events at the last moment for John Jones. And then he turns around and again is in trouble with the law for out of octagon bullshit. So we're going to have to watch and see how that unfolds and see how it impacts his career. But at this point, I'm off the train, man. I'm done with it. I can't stand behind a guy who's proven that no matter how good he is in the octagon, he's a piece of shit when he gets out of it. And I can't be on that team, man. I'm done.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate on this one. I'm not saying I'm on the John Jones team right now by any means. However, I do have to make this point. Right now, those are all allegations. He's only been charged with them. He has not been convicted. When that conviction comes through, I can't say when it comes through. If it comes through that he's convicted, because I don't want to be making any statements that could come back and harm myself. But if those are found to be true, those alleged incident that took place, dude, don't let him back in. However, if it comes back and he's found innocent, we all have to wipe our minds completely clear of whatever bullshit was said and call it a day. Look, he's done some stupid shit. We know that. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. I really do, because technically this is the United States. Everyone is presumed innocent until proven guilty. So right now, I have to go off of that and say he's still innocent because there's not a conviction.
True.
However, the rabbit hole that is John Jones, we've seen this before. I'm not doing these kinds of stupid things. I'm back on track. I've gotten the help I need. Fuck, watch the last Embedded series. He had his brother with him, and everything looked fantastic. Look, your brother makes millions doing what he does on the football field. You have made a lifetime worth of fucking money that you are just literally pissing away by being caught up in the wrong shit. Look, if okay, let me say this. John Jones, if you ever by chance run across this video, do me a favor. Everything that you've done, if these allegations come out to show that you're innocent, please do us all a favor. Only go 3 places. 1, to the gym to train for your next fight. 2, to your home. Your home. To stay out of trouble. And 3, the fight that you are scheduled for. I know you're going to say, well, what about grocery shopping? Motherfucker, you make enough goddamn money you can pay people to do your grocery shopping for you. They have apps for that, where they will drop that shit at your house. Don't you answer the door either. You send somebody else from your household, they answer the door, pick up the groceries. Because I don't want some dumb shit to come up, well, John Jones did this to me, then we have to go through this shit again. But you know what? If these things show up to be positive and you get yourself in hot water again, I hope they strip you of the title and you never fight again. It's not that I haven't enjoyed what you've done inside of the octagon. I truly have. But your fuckery outside of it as a face of MMA, and not just a face, one of the faces of MMA, is showing a complete lack of disregard and respect for the entire MMA community as a whole. Because you know what? Being as this is still this sport is new. It's still in its infancy. If you look at it this way, this sport has only been around since the 90s. There's fucking people that are watching this sport that weren't even born when this sport came about. So it is still in its infancy. Do us a favor. Stop fucking up, because you're making the rest of every other MMA fighter look suspicious as fuck. Look, I get it. You are one of the biggest draws in MMA. So, of course, there's going to be a lot of shit that's thrown at you, a lot of shit. I get it. But when you have allegations that are pressed like this, you better have a goddamn good alibi. That's all I'm saying. Look, I know I seen the shit you put out on Twitter and Twitter and all this other shit. You have alibis and people to mark where you were when this alleged incident happened. Look, so does everybody else and their brother when they have something fucking alleged to them. But like I said, this is all alleged right now. So I have to go by the U.S. standard. You are innocent until proven guilty. However, that does happen. Take your licks. Don't come back. Go find yourself a hole in the fucking mountain. Go live in that son of a bitch. Because obviously, you don't know how to act when you're in public in a normal society, if that's the case. Now, if this comes back and says bullshit, look, I'll be the first to wipe that slate clean. Because
yep.
I'm a big fan as far as what you do inside of the cage. It's what you do outside of that makes me fucking angry to see that you're squandering and pissing away such an amazing opportunity, such an amazing gift that you were fucking given. Look, not all of us were gifted with fucking genes to be able to have that type of fucking capabilities, those athletic capabilities. Look, my entire family, none of them had that gene. I would give my left and right testicle for that gene. I wouldn't quite give up my firstborn, but I would definitely give up both testicles for it. And what are you doing? You're pissing it away. Right now, you are sitting down when you pee. Do us a favor and stand the fuck up and pee and stop fucking up. Okay. I'm good. Allegedly.
Yeah. Plus, ESPN's not going to take that shit, and there's talks already going around. Like, I enjoy seeing John Jones fight. I enjoy seeing people fight against John Jones and trying to solve the puzzle. But there's already talks going around that his fights are a little boring. They're not as exciting as other fights. And then you got guys like I said, ESPN's not going to take it. They got Max Holloway. They got Stylebender coming. You know, they got guys that are athletic and put out a good name, a good image for the sport. They're like, his last fight didn't sell that good. It didn't. So it's just, I mean, he's got to be careful because soon the train ain't even going to be there for him to get on. He's just going to fucking go away, really. It's not going to, it's just not going to. And then, you know, it is a shame because then, like, we're waiting for Johnny Walker to come up to maybe be able to challenge him, and maybe that never even happens. It's crazy.
I agree. And it's a shame, man. But, you know, as they say, it is what it is. So we'll just have to keep an eye out and see how things unfold. Now, speaking of things unfolding, been talking a little bit this week, and we got a new little segment we're going to try out here. Yeah, obviously, on these episodes, you get my point of view, you get my take on it. I'm, as the kids would call, a hardcore fan of the combat world. I'm balls deep in MMA. I watch every bit of fighting that I can get my eyes on here. I've posted several different pictures before. It's not uncommon for me to be sitting here and literally have one set of combat sports going on my computer, another set going on my television, and maybe be following the up-to-date, you know, play-by-plays in text form on a website here on my phone at the same time. I consume all that I can of MMA, of combat sports. I love it. It's one of my favorite passions. It's one of my hobbies that I love to delve into. But there are those on the other end of that spectrum, those who have nothing against watching a fight, but are far from balls deep, as it were, in the MMA world, like myself, like TJ, like Nick here. And I think it would be interesting to hear how those fans look at some of the cards that we will give an in-depth breakdown to, how the layperson would analyze the card and give their predictions here. I'm talking, ladies and gentlemen, about a new segment that I'm going to be calling Casual Corner. And for Casual Corner, we're going to need a casual fan to give us the picks of said fan and give us that insight into the casual side of the MMA world. And I think I might have found such a person here. If we could get the flock to release and come about here, the one and only, ladies and gentlemen, LUMI Streams.
You're a LUMI Streams.
I'm not, but I am a filthy casual of sorts. Thank you again, LUMI, for taking the time here. So, like we were saying, I want to get the opinion of this card from somebody who doesn't have the ridiculous level of in-depth that those of us do here. And I know that you have done a little bit of research, or tried to do a little bit of research into the events that we have going down. And I was curious as how you see this one shaken loose.
Honestly, I think where I am just starting, I'd be better off talking about last week's fight, because I'm still to the point where, and of course I watch UFC, I consider Meter a very close, dear friend of mine, and I hang out with him often. And if you hang out with Meter, you can't help but to get involved with something that he's so passionate about. But while we're watching these fights together, it's just me saying, oh, and I'm calling the color by the pants. I'm not calling them by their names. It's, oh, green, get her, green, get her. Like, that's how I go. So looking up these fights, including the fact that the ones in the main card are a bunch of nobodies, you really fucked me over. And I only had 2 days to look these guys up.
I figure if ever there was a card that wouldn't really be too polarizing for the casual fan to have to go in and look at, this would probably be one of those, because exactly like you're saying here, aside from the main event and the co-main event, for the most part, this entire card, top to bottom, is really just a whole lot of fluff. So there's way worse ways to have to go through them and figure out who you like.
And this is where it gets challenging, because I just like to watch people beat the ever-living shit out of another person, and then I'm rooting for that person. I don't give a fuck about reading your stats. Will you go in? Will you beat the ever-living shit out of somebody? And are you not a cocky asshole?
Casual corner, ladies and gentlemen. So, of the things that you were able to find here, give us a little rundown about how you think things are going to shake loose.
Who are we starting with?
Wherever you feel like starting here.
I'm not. This is your show. You pick out. I got my little notebook here.
Run us down the notebook then. Let's see how we got it.
Are we starting from the top or the bottom, bro?
Your call. Dealer's choice.
Nope. I'm not doing it. You pick one.
Well, we'll start from the top then.
Okay. Who are we starting with? Max or Frankie?
Yes.
Which one?
Furthest on the left.
Max it is.
There we go.
Alright, so I had not very much time to see his fighting methods. But I thought it was interesting that Max is fairly young, managed to work his way up, and doesn't, from what I get off of, like, just the little bit I could in the past day and a half, it seems like he's not afraid of fucking up, but it feels like he wants to learn from it and work his way up, and I like that. And then, yep, Frankie, the fact he's a little bit older, he's jumping down a weight class, it feels kind of like that's going to be a last hurrah. So, we're looking for my prediction. I think Max is going to win it, but I think Frankie will give out a last hurrah difficult challenge.
Definitely a good chance there. Agreed. What do we got next?
Isn't everybody else supposed to talk about the casualness?
No, you did good. This is all you.
This is all you. This is called casual corner for a reason.
So you guys don't get to give your input on these fights? It's just me over here?
Oh, we will in just a minute.
We will in a moment. You can stick around for it. It's cool.
We're going to break them down balls deep. We want the casual outlook on these first.
Oh, that's just fucked up. I don't even get to come in here and listen to you guys talk about something so I could form an opinion. It's just, LUMI, let's look at your goo-goo-foo, which you don't have.
Here's the key behind that. If you listen to what we say, that might sway what you think already. So we don't want to do that. We want it to be the honest opinion of a casual fan.
Right.
Yeah, but this casual fan couldn't find very much on some of these less casual people.
Look,
I think it's fair to say that only the top two fights would be good this week. I do think that because she probably gathered more information than I have with everybody after that.
Right.
Yeah, like,
to be honest, there's only like 4 fights on this card that I thought were noteworthy about talking about.
so the next...
And that one of them was kind of iffy.
Right.
The next card, I'm actually excited for this because I want to see Cyborg beat Felicia's asshole in, please. I was trying to find all the good stuff I could about her last night, and I was like, Meter, did she adopt her puppies? Because I noticed she has 2 puppies and a dog. I'll give you a little bit of respect if you're an animal lover. That's swaying points for me liking you. And I felt like the last fight I saw where she was fighting against that green chick, it was just a lot of dancing around and not a whole lot of fun. It was just really anticlimactic and it took too long. And Cyborg is just a beast. So Cyborg, I hope, just puts that bitch down.
See? And that works perfectly. That's exactly what we were looking for here. Anybody else you were able to get some good notes on?
Yes.
All right. Who we got?
Neil versus Nico
Price.
Yeah.
Nico Price. Yep.
I even wrote don't like right there. There's something about watching the reviews that he was doing with people. I was kind of just like, you shut the fuck up, please. He seems good. He is really promoting CBD usage in the MMA thing, which I fully support. You're doing a sport that could get you dependent on addictive substances. So you're promoting a healthy alternative with no severe addiction consequences or anything like that. So I appreciated that. He seems too much like a goofball. Like, he says, and he even said, you have to be professional when you're fighting. So when you're not fighting, it's good just to let loose. And I was like, I can understand that. I can get behind that. But just the way that man spoke drove me insane. So I couldn't handle it.
Was that Neil or Price?
This is Nico.
Nico Price. Gotcha.
Yeah. He likes fast endings, but then when I looked at the UFC 240 thingy, bajiggy babubber, it seemed like it was pretty equal, I guess, in the face-off. But, I noticed he, like, significant strikes landed per minute. That just looked garbage for him. For somebody saying that they like fast fights, how come you could only hit 2.93 significant strikes? So that was like, seems like you're talking out of your ass now. Significant strikes 32, absorbed per minute 4.29, defense 54%. You just gonna go in there and get hit a bunch of times? Like, is that your goal?
You're gonna get hit two times more than you're gonna put out.
Right.
Are you one of those creepers that gets stronger all of a sudden as you get beaten? Like, you just go in, get beaten to death, and hitting nothing, defending nothing, and then just knock them out? Like, what is your tactic here?
I'm tiring them out.
Rope-a-dope.
Right? The hardcore robo-dope.
And then Neil, dude, he's really active, seems feisty, not obnoxious energy, wants to get paid. The amount of times he mentioned getting $50,000 was just absurd.
Yep, that fight night bonus.
That's just stupid. It's just stupid. Talk about something other than your fucking money wants, please. It seemed cool that he was, he still seems to accept that he's starting out, so when people are like, what fights do you want to see? He accepted already that he's just starting out. He's not going to get very many. He wants to work his way up, but if he's going to just go for the money, that's not enough passion to go all the way up, just saying.
Yep. So who do you think's going to take it?
I wrote down seems equal, but it looks like Neil might have a little bit more defense. If I'm wrong about the money, and he's actually passionate about it, I'm hoping he will win.
Nice. Nice. Any more?
Do you want me to keep going?
If you got more, we can keep going.
These other people I couldn't find any videos on because that's how fucking significant they are.
Yep.
So I just have to look at the fact at how fast they can beat each other up. So the next people, Oliver versus Armin. Lightweight. Yeah, Red's not looking so hot. Oliver looks like he might just be a punching bag. But then you go to significant strikes and the other dude, the blue dude, has 0 down the board. So I have no idea what the fuck that's supposed to be about.
Let's see.
What's a KO? Knockout?
Yep.
What's a sub?
Submission.
Decision? I fucking hate it when matches go to decision. At least it's only 17%. I don't want to watch you just sit around and snuggle with each other. Fucking beat the shit out of each other, goddammit. Please. I'm going for blue dude. Who's blue dude? Armin.
Armin
Unless it turns out when I watch his intro he's a douchebag, then I'm rooting for the other dude. Because I couldn't find any of this information. Mark versus
Christoph. Yep.
Fucking name is that?
Yep.
Looks like he's trying to give you puppy eyes. I don't know, that's kind of creepy. Okay. Knockouts, 73-30. Oh, look at all those decisions. Fuck the blue dude. He's got 65% decisions. I don't want to watch you fucking snuggle. Beat the shit out of each other. The other guy's got 27, so that's a plus. Oh, and then we go down to significant strikes, and red dude's 0 all the way down, and blue actually has something. The fact that it goes to decisions, I'm rooting for red, though.
I just want to make a quick side note for anybody who's trying to discern what red and blue is. Just go to the UFC page and look at the fighter analytics there.
Right.
You'll be able to see what she's talking about.
Perfect. So,
do I go hide back in my casual corner now?
You're absolutely welcome to hide back into your casual corner. Thank you for popping in and giving us a casual outlook on the 240 card here. We appreciate that.
No problem.
So from there, we will move into the meat and potatoes, as it were, of this particular episode. The UFC 240 card, talking about Holloway versus Edgar. So like we've discussed a little bit before, this is absolutely a card, despite it being a pay-per-view, that is just stuffed to the gills with fluff. There is more than your fair share of who and where the fuck did that guy come from that are on this card, and we're not going to bore you with all that nonsense here. As we've said, there's only a couple fights really even worth mentioning here, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to give you a basic rundown of this card in the fights that we feel are worth talking about here. The very first one that I want to jump right to the top and talk about here, the early prelims for this event were 3 fights originally. They've already canceled one of those fights, so now there's only 2 fights on the early prelims, which, granted, are not the most prestigious of places to put a fight, but if you put the right fights on the early prelims, it absolutely can draw eyes and get you some attention here. The problem is that is not what the UFC has done with this weekend's card here. Of the formerly 3, now 2 fights that are on the early prelims, neither of them are genuinely worth breaking down and talking about, but there is one that I am going to mention just because it does have more potential than the other here. That being the Jillian Robertson versus Sarah Frota fight. Now, the amount of time I'm going to spend talking about this fight is the exact amount of time that I feel it's going to deserve, and that is Sarah Frota has a giant, ridiculous face tattoo. That's fucking stupid. Moving right along to the prelim card. Again, we're faced with a situation here where we, in previous cards, have seen upwards of 8, even 10 fights on a prelim. Sometimes the vast majority of them being spectacular to watch, entertaining as shit, definitely getting you in that zone, hyped up for the main card. This isn't one of those. This is, like we keep having to hammer home, another one where they just throw fluff after fluff on top of fluff. And we're not making stuffed animals here, but I don't think they seem to give a shit about this card, really. So there are, on the prelims, 3 cards. One of them, who the fuck is that versus where did that guy come from situation. The other 2, again, we're not going to give full breakdowns for, but I do want to take time to mention because they both do have the potential for something to happen, just not a whole lot of potential for super exciting greatness here. The first one, we are talking about the super little guys here. We are talking about Alexander Pantoja versus Davison Figueiredo. Now, Davison Figueiredo is a very small, very energetic man with a very discernible bright red stripe that he has dyed into his hair throughout the vast majority of his career. And you're definitely going to want to keep an eye on that because that little dude bounces around and gets crazy. So while this might not be a highly anticipated fight or a big shakeup for the division type of fight, it definitely does have some potential for either one of those gentlemen to get loose and just make it a hell of a haymaker night. The next one I'm going to bump down to real quick here again, not a needle mover, not real devastating for the division, no matter which way it shakes out here. But again, potential to be possibly a good fight if both fighters get in there and get the fuck after it here. This time we were talking about Alexis Davis versus Viviana Araujo. I don't know. I don't want to presume it's an odd last name. Get after it. Alexis Davis is another one of those ladies in the UFC that consistency is not her strong suit. She has a decent tool set. She has a decent gas tank. The problem is we rarely see the same Alexis Davis twice. And in a game like the UFC that is ever evolving and ever pushing forward, if you're not showing up consistently the same fighter twice, you better be showing up better both situations. And that's not always the case that we see with Alexis Davis here. On the other side of that, Vivian is not exactly a needle mover with a ton of highlight reel worthy fights herself. That being said, we are in a sport where, as they say, a puncher's chance is always there. So this, again, is one of those fights that it's not really super anticipated, super highly, sought after, but it does have some potential. That, though, will bring us into the meat and potatoes of the meat and potatoes here, the actual main card itself. The problem there is that even the main card itself here is not really a noteworthy main card. It's not really anything worth bragging about. But in this situation, I do feel that at least these 5 fights are worth giving a little bit more of a breakdown for. So we're going to start right off at the top. Marc-Andre Barriault versus Christoph Jotko. Now, both of these gentlemen are middle of the road gentlemen, both have good potential. The difference here being Jotko, in my opinion, has got a little more fight IQ. They both have very similar styles. They both have some very similar skill sets. Both of them have decent striking, decent ground game, nothing to brag about, but both of them have a lot of heart. The difference here is that Jotko seems to have a little bit better fight IQ. He seems to be able to read his opponents a little bit better on the fly and adjust his game plan accordingly. I think that is going to be very helpful in what is going to be the opening fight of a main card that's, in my opinion, not going to have a lot of people drawn quickly to their seat for the early and prelim cards. So the vast majority of the folks who are going to actually put eyeballs on this card are going to be the pay-per-view buyers, are going to be the folks in the stadium who took the time to go get their beer and hot dogs before they came to sit down and are just going to relax their way through and show up as the music and the lights start to go for the main card's intro here. I think in this situation, the fight IQ of Jotko is going to benefit him, and I think he is going to be able to read it off a little bit better. I think Jotko is going to win this one, although with the way that both of these gentlemen have been presenting themselves lately, I don't think it's going to be a real big and exciting fight, much as I might like it to be. I don't really know when he's going to take it. I just have that feeling that Jotko's IQ is going to be enough to help him across the line here.
You've knocked everything out of the park there. The only other thing I would add to that is Marc-Andre Barriault. He's built quite a bit thicker, and he does have that one-punch knockout ability. So there could be that. However, chances that really happening, I don't think are going to, purely because Jotko does have a very good fight IQ for where he's at currently. I'm not going to say he's a fantastic fight IQ, but for where he's at currently, in his current state, he's got a better fight IQ. So I think he'll be able to see those big shots coming to deflect them, defend them, roll with it, whatever the case may be. That's the only other possible outcome I could see is a possibly a one-punch KO, but that's purely on the fact that Marc-Andre is a big motherfucker for 185. But yeah. Although he does have, there's really nothing this was not even one of the ones I fucking wanted to talk about, to be quite honest. There was 4 literal fights on this. The main event, the co-main event, and then the other 2 that we're about to get to. The rest of the card for me was getting fluffed without the courtesy of fondling my balls. I'm just saying. But, this one, you did knock that one out of the park, though. Definitely with that one. The only other thing I could say was that possibility of the knockout bar we'll see. I mean, who knows? It could be fireworks. Hopefully, we get amazed by one of these fluffy cards where every fight just shows up and blows the fucking doors off the building, and there's going to be a lot of people pissed that they didn't watch.
Right.
Who knows? However, I don't foresee it going that way, but it would be a cool fucking thing to have happen.
Absolutely. We're getting a thumbs up from Nick, so we'll move along to the next fight on the card here. This one, like TJ was saying, excuse me, is definitely one of the fights on this card that is worth mentioning and giving a little bit of breakdown to. This is one, in my opinion, of the saving graces of this card. And it's ironic because it's a pair of unranked gentlemen who both in their own right have every eye in this building prospectively glued to them, because this, in many people's opinion, is going to be the real opening fireworks of the main card here. Now, we are talking about one Oban Mercier. We are talking about Arman Surakian. Now, these two gentlemen, the Canadian gangster and his rival, are about to get after it. Arman has great striking. The Canadian gangster, not the worst striking, but he is definitely more known for his grappling and his iron grip. When that guy gets a hold of you and locks his hands, you are going where he wants you to go. He will pick you up and slam you. He will drag you. He will trip you. When he's ready for this fight to go to the ground, it generally goes to the ground. It doesn't necessarily matter for the most part who's on the other side, with the exception of this particular situation here. Arman, while he might not be the best known in this division for the up-and-comers, he is definitely one of the strongest. And this gentleman, you will see when we get in there on Saturday, the size difference between these two gentlemen for being the same weight class sure as hell don't look like it. The Canadian gangster always has a very good physique about him, but Arman looks like one of those dudes that's cutting 40 pounds or more to get down to this class. And it shows on fight night when he's had a chance to rehydrate and puff back up a little bit here. I love the Canadian gangster. He's generally got that Canadian tuxedo on when he's coming to the fight week. This being fighting in home soil, fighting on Canadian grounds, I think it's going to give him a little bit of a boost, a little bit of a in my backyard feeling. I don't know that it's going to be enough to deal with the straight power of Arman, though, in this situation. Props given where they are deserved. Canadian gangster OAM is always problematic until you put him to sleep, but I think in this situation, Arman might just have the power to do it.
You know, I'm gonna have to disagree on this one, purely because I think home field advantage makes a big fucking difference here with this fight. If you look at this Mercier there, the Canadian gangster, every time he's fought in Canada, he's put on a hell of a fucking performance for his home crowd. I have a feeling that purely on that alone, that's going to be that extra little boost that he needs to climb this mountain. It's not going to be an easy climb by any means for him, because this is probably, as far as equal matchups on our card are concerned, this is probably one of the most equal matches I've seen in a while. And he's definitely needs some oxygen, and I think that's where that home field advantage comes from. I think that's what's going to get him to squeak this one out. I don't think he's going to finish him. I really think this one's going to end up going to decision. But don't get me wrong, Arman, that dude is tough as a fucking ox and built like one too. That dude is a fucking tank at 155. Holy shit. But you know what? Neither one of these two guys are really going to, I will say, move the needle much as far as sales for this are concerned. But they are definitely going to put off some fireworks to start out. Anybody who is a good, solid MMA fan is going to sit down and be able to watch this and go, this is going to be a good fight, because they know what they're in for. Whether you're looking for the striking or whether you're looking for grappling, this fight's going to have a little bit of both. And I think, to be honest, we're going to see a bit more grappling out of this It's to be honest, it's a tough one to call for me as far as who wins it. That's why I think just the home field advantage, Canadian Gangster is going to take it, but I think it's going to be by a decision. I don't think he's going to end up stopping Armand. I just don't foresee it happening. I would try to say Armand's nickname, but I can't pronounce that shit, so it's not worth my time. Probably because I'm not from fucking Georgia, and not Georgia the state.
Yep, I actually like Mercier a lot. I like them both, but I'm just gonna pick Mercier on the fact that I like him a little more. Yeah, that's about it. I just am going to enjoy to see this fight. There's a lot of fights here that are going to be. I just want to see. I don't really care who wins, but yeah, that's one of them.
It's definitely going to be a good matchup, and I absolutely agree that the fucking wrestling ability of Mercier is never to be overlooked, but it's definitely going to be, in my opinion, the real kickoff to the main card, unless, you know, hey, we've been wrong in the past. Jocko might just light the fucking arena on fire and set it off. So I think the Canadian Gangster is really going to get the roof rocking, but we'll have to see. Moving along from there to the next one on the card, Jeff Neal versus Nico Price. Now, you want to talk about a pair of dudes who are ready to come in and lay everything on the line to get this fucking arena going. This is the pair that if the Canadian Gangster doesn't have the rafters shaken by the time these two walk out, they'll get it going for you here. The co-main and the main are definitely going to be exciting fights, but these two gentlemen are going to have the building on their feet, I believe. Jeff Neal is a crafty individual with a ton of strength, but Nico Price is a puzzle that very few people have actually been able to figure out, because that dude is so elusive. Every time you think you've got him timed, you think you know what he's throwing, he changes his style completely. The highlight that they've been showing this week of him, that it's one of my favorite scenes that he has accomplished in his career so far, and those are the hammer fists from the bottom. He actually was on his back, used his foot to prop a gentleman's head in the right position, and hammer fisted from the bottom and put the guy to sleep, knocked him out cold from the bottom with upward hammer fists. And that's just one of those techniques that you rarely, if ever, see in mixed martial arts overall, let alone the UFC. And it's one of those things that you can see just come naturally to Nico Price. That's the type of off angle, non-traditional fight that he can wrap around you and just throw your game plan all the way out the window here. And that's not to overlook Jeff Neal by any stretch of the imagination. This gentleman can get the fuck after it. And he is one of those that has got short range, quick blast power that can just end your night if you're sloppy. I don't think Nico Price is going to be sloppy, though. I think this is one of those situations where Jeff Neal is going to come in and he's going to be slick and he's going to use his movement because he's got it. He's got the ability to flow very nicely. But I think the unconventional nature of Nico Price's fighting style is just going to be too much. He comes at you from such weird angles and such off-timed steps. I think it's going to be too much, and I think we're going to see another interesting win from Nico Price this weekend.
You know, I think you're almost spot on that one. Nico, his game is always tight. Every time you see him fight, even when he loses, he looks like it's cinched up. Don't get me wrong, he's got some holes in his game that I've seen picked apart and used against him. But for the most part, he comes in there pretty well-rounded, and he's always sharp. I never really see him in a slouching. I never see it as a slouch fight where he comes in looking like fucking trash. He's always got the right head moving in the right way. He's constantly rolling with punches. You see him lead the fight where he wants to go a lot of the times. On the other side of this, Jeff Neal, that motherfucker has some one-punch knockout ability that it's a big problem for a lot of people in the welterweight division, period. Can he catch Nico? That's the question. if he can, then night Nico. But in this case, I think you're 100% spot on, purely on the fact that I don't think Nico's going to come in there looking like a slouch, because he never does. Jeff's highlight reels on this for him have mostly been against guys where they look like a slouch when they're coming out to fight. Nico's not that person. If he somehow proves us wrong and looks like a slouch, though, he's going to fucking sleep. But my best money on this is on Nico Price. That's all there is to it. Unfortunately, Jeff Neal, you got a puncher's chance, but I don't think you're well enough rounded to actually fucking class Nico Price here.
Yeah, I got Nico Price down here. I like Nico Price. I actually don't know the other guy too well. But I did want to mention this because LUMI talked about it when Neil said about the fight bonus. So when a fighter says that, that's good. That means that they want to put on a good show. That's what that means. It's not necessarily always about the money. It's about they want to put on a good show, because bonuses are given out for either a performance or fight of the night. Sometimes they'll give out a couple more than two. But when a fighter says, we're going for, sometimes two fighters that are fighting each other will agree, let's go. They'll probably almost always say it like, let's go for this fight bonus. Yep. That means like, we're going to dance with each other to get this bonus together. We're going to try to beat the shit out of each other for as long as possible so that we get this fight bonus, or one of us gets the performance bonus. So when a fighter says that, you're going to look for an exciting fight. So, and most of the time, I mean, like, you'll see it, Justin Gaethje always say that, and they'll almost always get it. Tony Ferguson will almost always get it. Cowboy Cerrone almost always gets it. So it's good when you see a fighter do that. That means that they're going to lay it on the line to give a good show.
Absolutely. And this is one of those that absolutely has the potential to be the fight of the night, depending, of course, on how the main and co-main go.
Yeah. Yep, that's it. To be honest, it very well could be. The other caveat to that whole talking about the money thing, some people are driven by money. And I go, yep, I said it again. Some people are actually driven by money, where they work harder, perform better because they want that extra money. If that's the case, and that's how he's driven, and that's why he's looking at that 50K, maybe he's not looking as, you don't care if I get the fight and I just want the fucking money. Yeah, there's some people that are driven like that. In fact, I'll say it, my mother is one of those people. She is driven by money. That's why she busts her ass in what she does. Same concept when it comes to the fight games. Some of these guys, they're fantastic fighters in their own right, but also they're looking at their financial responsibilities. That extra 50K, that might pay off a car that you have a fucking loan on, or might have bought your new boat that you've been wanting for fucking years. Yeah.
Could be your last mortgage payment.
Yeah, it could be that last mortgage payment where you're free and clear. It could be a lot of things. So I could see that being either way. However, it definitely does have the capability of being fireworks if you're looking purely at them saying, yeah, I'm going for that bonus because I want fight at the night. However, there are two fucking major fights left after that to get pull off fight of the night. And actually, let me stop myself there. There's only one more fight on this card that I think can actually take fight of the night. Only one, because we'll get to that in a second, and I'll let you guys know why. But definitely the money could be a factor in possibly getting them fight of the night. If it's just that maybe he wants more exposure because they got fight of the night, or because he actually wants the money.
Very true. Very true. But either way, regardless of the rest of this card shaking out, I think that one has the most potential for definitely being a fight of the night potential. But that's going to bring us to our co-main event of the evening. This is a bit of a weird scenario. It's a certain part, the potential changing of the guards. It's a certain part trying to regain a lost step. And then on the other side of it, it's trying to climb out of a shadow to a certain degree. And what we're talking about here is Chris Cyborg versus Felicia Spencer. Now, the thing that makes this fight the most interesting, in my opinion, is that this is a fight that was tried to be set up while both of these women were still in Invicta, and it never happened. Cyborg was the clearly dominant 145-pound women's champion over in Invicta, and when she left and came to the UFC, Felicia Spencer almost immediately stepped right into her spot and became the new dominant 145-pound women's champion in Invicta FC. And then more recently has made her way as well into the UFC, introduced by none other than Megan Anderson. Now, Megan Anderson is no fucking slouch by any stretch of the imagination. And that fight was definitely a little lackluster. You could tell that it was, I don't want to say it wasn't the game plan, but I don't think that's how they originally envisioned that fight going, to say the least. A win is a win. I'll give her that. She most definitely got that weird side tap, awkward looking choke to work. But the thing is, Felicia Spencer's record, not that it's padded, but there's no one on it that even resembles Cyborg. So she has spent her career trying to almost identify herself not only as that 145-pound Invicta Women's Champion, not just as a prospect coming up with potential in the UFC in the 145-pound division, but as the better version of what Cyborg used to represent as the 145-pound champion. And as much as you got to give credit where credit is due for being 100% all heart, I think in this situation, Felicia Spencer has just got a little bit too much in her own head and doesn't have enough respect for the power and the danger that Chris Cyborg absolutely represents to anyone that she steps into the octagon with. And now, more than ever, coming off of a brutal, devastating knockout loss to Amanda Nunes, who not only took her belt, but then became the women's first champ in the UFC. By doing so, this is a situation where she has gone literally out of the country. She went to South Africa to train for this camp. She got completely away from everything that could have distracted her, from everything that could have reminded her of the loss that would have fueled that doubt in a fighter's head after a brutal KO like that. She separated herself from all of that. Felicia, while she definitely has potential and is absolutely going to be a contender at 145, I think in this situation, for lack of a better term, is meat getting ready to get thrown into the grinder here. Now, we have seen time and time again where they will throw a zombie soccer mom or a dumb foxy broad at Cyborg to let her soup can her way through. And I don't think this is one of those situations. I think this is one of those things where if you follow the social media, if you watch the press that she has done, Felicia Spencer has actually been calling for a fight against Cyborg since they were both still in Invicta. This is not a fight that she's being talked into, that she's being coerced into. This is a fight that she herself has sought out and gone after on her own. The problem with that is I think that she is looking at it more from a fan's perspective than she is from a fighter's perspective. She is making way too light of the threat that Cyborg is in general, but more so coming off of that brutal knockout that she just got from Amanda Nunes. She is clear, Cyborg, I'm saying, is clear-headed, motivated, and dangerous right now coming off of that loss. And I think that the timing of Felicia Spencer getting what she asked for might be a perfect example of be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it and it might not be what you expected. I think this is going to be a very typical, brutal Cyborg KO. I don't think it happens in the first as much as I'm sure Cyborg would like it to. I think this is going to be second round. I think she is going to show Felicia Spencer in the first round that she is not on the same level. And I think in the second round, she's going to turn it up and she's going to show everybody why she should get her rematch against Amanda Nunes. I think this is going to be a bad knockout coming from Chris Cyborg to show Felicia Spencer she's not on the same level in the 145 division.
Oh boy. This is Not the fight that I was saying that I think would be fight of the night, because it is not. But this is what I will say. Felicia Spencer, unfortunately, in my opinion on this, and I'm saying this in the nicest way possible, because Felicia has done a fantastic job when she was in Invicta, carrying the torch once Cyborg left. But in this case, she has let her alligator mouth overload her canary ass. And I'm not saying she is a slouch by any means of the imagination, because she's not. Unfortunately, Cyborg left the fucking country. She's pissed off. Contrary to what you're seeing in all of the embedded series, I'm guaranteeing there's some fucking rage and anger in there where she's going to go. And I don't think this makes us out of the first round. I don't think there's a chance in hell, because she wants to get back that loss to Nunez. So if she's going to get that, she needs to come out and dominate the ever-living fuck out of this champ from another promotion who could have possibly fought her at one point or another. On the other side of this, my hat's off to Felicia Spencer because of this one thing. She was both looking for this fight for two reasons. One, because she's a fan of Cyborg. The other part of that, she wants to step out of her shadow because she thinks everybody in the 145 is in Cyborg's shadow, which unfortunately is not the case. Everybody in the 145 is in a lioness's shadow, because that's who runs the show right fucking now. But I like where her head's at. She's got the right idea, and Cyborg said it best on the UFC Embedded series this week. Just like Mike Tyson said at one point, everyone has a game plan till they get punched in the mouth. Unfortunately, in this case, Felicia Spencer has never fought any woman who strikes as hard and as ferociously as Chris Cyborg does. So, in this case, first round KO, Christina Cyborg Santos all day.
Yeah, I just don't think anybody else is beating Cyborg. I didn't think Amanda Nunes was going to beat Cyborg. I think I would like to see that fight again, and not taking anything away from Amanda Nunes. I think it'd be a great fight again. But yeah, I think Cyborg is she's just the real deal. I mean, I think everybody knows that. There is something to say about Felicia Spencer spending that much time, though, consumed with Chris Cyborg. Like, I didn't know that. I didn't know the whole Invicta thing. So that's actually something to be said. If she was moving up, and it's always like the guys coming up, their eye is always on the champion, and they're always honing in their skills for the champion, and then you see a whole bunch of guys come up, and then all of a sudden the champion's getting their ass kicked a whole bunch of times. But yeah, I just don't see. I don't see anybody beating Cyborg besides Nunes, and I would like to see that again.
I agree completely. I think realistically, like you said, not to take anything away from Nunes, that fucking knockout was absolutely 100% earned, and it was vicious. She put in the work and she got the result. But I think if that goes a second time, I think, for lack of a better comparison, I think that's a Conor McGregor type of situation. I think she got caught off guard in the first round. I think you run it back and it has a very different outcome. And that's not to say that I think that Amanda can't beat Cyborg again. I think the game plan will be very different, though. I think in this situation, if they run it back, Cyborg is going to train and game plan completely different than she did the first time. And I think it'll be a very different and a very interesting fight to see run back.
Yeah, unfortunately, sometimes champions do take contenders lightly, and I think that was one of them. And that just, honestly, it's a sign of not being a great champion. Like, you just can't do that. You can't do that. That's not being perfect. So.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. That's exactly what it is. That's someone with a belt not acting like a champion. And in this situation, it literally cost her her belt and her championship. And I think if she really wants to get it back, I think she has to do her fucking homework and do the due diligence. And she has to really go in and train for a legitimate Amanda Nunes 5-round war. And I think if she does that, it could be a very interesting rematch. But that being said, that will bring us to the meat and potatoes of the meat and potatoes that is the meat and potatoes of this meat and potatoes filled episode. Fluff and carbs and fluff, but here we are, ladies and gentlemen, at the main event. Now, this is a fight that I can honestly say not a lot of people anticipated seeing. I'm not saying it's a bad fight to have been made. I'm just saying that at the path that the point in the path that both of these gentlemen are on career-wise, not a lot of folks saw this being that intersection. Now, that being said, like we discussed earlier, they have been signed on the dotted line, contracted to fight each other 3 separate times before this and have never made it as close as we are right now. Fingers crossed we actually make it to Saturday and get to see this matchup. But we are talking about Max Bless Holloway versus Frankie the Answer Edgar. We have got a young legend in the making, undoubtedly one of the best 145-pound fighters, not only in the UFC, but in my opinion, one of the best 145ers in the world, against a gentleman who is undeniably a Hall of Fame legend waiting to be inducted when he finally stops fighting, but from a different era in a different weight class. Literally 10 years ago, Frankie Edgar was the UFC lightweight 155-pound champion who took the belt from the prior most famous Hawaiian in the UFC, the one and only, the prodigy, B-Day Penn, in not one, not two, but 3 successful fights against one of the greatest MMA legends ever to grace the octagon. Frankie has been there. Frankie has seen the top of the mountain. The difference here is that was a decade ago. A younger Frankie and a heavier Frankie. Unlike most fighters, as Frankie's gotten older, Frankie legitimately did get smaller and went down a weight class, whereas most fighters, as they get older, put on more mass and stop cutting as much weight and will go up at least a weight class, if not 2, depending on their starting size. Frankie didn't take that path. Frankie's gone the opposite direction. He's gotten smaller. He's gone from 155 down to 145 and looks legitimately pretty damn good at 145, with the exception of a couple of very important fights that very aggravatingly have been specifically left out of every single build-up promotion I have seen all week from the UFC. There is one glaring hole in all of the highlights that they have been showing and all of the pressers that they have been doing and all of the questions the reporters have been asking about. There's one thing that has been noticeably absent, in my opinion, and it is the most important thing that needs to be addressed when we're talking about this particular fight, and that is Frankie Edgar's one and only knockout loss in UFC history. And that happened at the hands of one Brian T. City Ortega, who was the last man that Max Holloway just put a clinic on with. They literally had to stop his fight because he was going to die. Max was going to kill this man in the octagon, and he was going to let it happen to try and get that goal. That man gave Frankie Edgar his one and only knockout loss in UFC history. Frankie Edgar is the sole holding record maintainer for the most fight time any UFC member has ever had, and continues to add to that total with this fight and every fight he has taken leading up to this. Not in his weight class, not in the lower weight classes, in all of UFC history for all weight classes. Frankie Edgar has been there more than anyone. And the one person who has been able to figure out that puzzle to the fullest extent of efficiency is the man that Max Holloway just literally embarrassed. He beat so bad. And while I get it, we say it time and time again, and I'll agree with it here, you cannot rely on MMA math. 1 + 1 does not always equal 2 in the fight world. This is exactly one of those situations, but that has to be addressed because despite all of his great wars, all of his spectacular fights, Frankie Edgar has a button that can be pushed that shuts the show off, just like everyone else. And the only person to have ever found that button in his career just got worked by the man that he's about to fight. I'm a huge Frankie Edgar fan. I have been for literally the entirety of my fandom in mixed martial arts, in combat sports. Frankie Edgar literally is a living legend and one of the undeniably baddest men walking this planet today. But he's stepping into the octagon against what I would say is absolutely and undeniably the best 145-pound fighter in the world. And there's no way in hell that Frankie Edgar would ever or will ever take this fight lightly. He's absolutely been training his ass off, and he looks spectacular. In all of the videos, in the open workouts, in the promotions that he's done, he looks great. But looking great is not good enough to beat Max Holloway. We have seen people look great until they step in there with Max Holloway. And the problem is Frankie Edgar counts on his pressure. He counts on being able to dictate the pace, to come in and come at you full speed from the jump. The problem is Max Holloway doesn't wilt under pressure. He shines under pressure. Max doesn't beat you by hitting you with a one-shot knockout power. He beats you because he hits you with 175 medium range shots while you're trying to find where the hole in his game is. Everywhere you go, he's going to piece you up. He's going to get the body shots in when you're looking for the head kick. He's going to throw a head kick when you're watching for a cross. He's got tools in every aspect of the game, and he's all about volume. While Frankie might put pressure on, Max is going to put on volume. It's going to be like someone is pouring buckets of punches at you from the opening bell and to the closing bell. And it doesn't matter if they're standing on the feet or if Frankie gets them to the ground, because Max has got spectacular ground defense and spectacular ground offense. He can strike from the ground. He can submit you from the ground. He's got great ability to get out of what you're trying to do to him while he's on the ground. And that volume never stops. Max can do this for 25 straight rounds and never lose a breath. Frankie might have pressure, but pressure doesn't always beat volume. Pressure might slow it down, but I think we're about to see a fight where, despite Frankie having seen it all, having been through it all, this is a puzzle that he will not be able to work out. I think this is going to be a grueling grudge match. I do not think in any stretch of the imagination this is a one-round fight. I think this one goes deep. I think this one might even go the full 5, because I don't think that Max is going to decimate Frankie on that other side either. I think Frankie has got every possibility to try and weather the storm and maybe take this to the judges. But I think at the end of the day, to be the man, you have to beat the man. And I don't think Frankie can do that. I think Max is going to use this as another example of why he is the best 145er in the world. And I think he defeats the living legend that is Frankie Edgar and gets one of the most notable checks in his resume that he has had to date.
This, in my opinion, I'll say it right off the get-go. Actually, no, I'm going to save it, because I want everybody to wait it out. Hold on, don't get your panties in a twist. Let me start here. It is what it is. Max Holloway throws volume upon volume, like you said. He throws the most strikes per minute, I think, of almost everybody in the UFC, if I'm not mistaken. However, he's never fought anyone who pressures like Frankie Edgar pressures. That will definitely slow volumes up. If you want to talk about wars and watching somebody, a war of attrition, go watch Frankie Edgar and Gray Maynard. That fight right there will show you the pressure that is Frankie Edgar. Now, MMA math definitely doesn't work here. Look, and he's been knocked out one time. Yes, that got left out of a lot of things. I'm surprised nobody did bring it up. However, he's only been knocked out one fucking time. One fucking time against some of the most dangerous fighters in the fucking world. He's fought the best of the best. He's been down that road. Yes, he did it at 155. However, 145, he looks more at home to me at 145 than he ever did at 155. He looked undersized at 155, but his pressure is what kept him winning those fights. Do I necessarily know that the pressure is going to get the Max? No, because that dude has a gas tank for days as well. That's why he's able to throw such volume. And anybody who's watched Max's fights realizes he'll start a little bit slow. But as that fight progresses, that pace picks up and picks up and picks up and picks up. It's like a fucking train. Yeah, they start really slow, but once it gets moving, that's a hard train to derail. The only thing that I think Frankie can possibly do to derail that train that is Max Holloway is to outgas tank him with pressure. And by that, I mean he's going to have to hang on him. Takedowns, takedowns, run him against the fence. He's going to have to do anything and everything in his power to try to burn out Max's gas tank, which haven't really seen anybody who does pressure like Frankie fight Max yet. Unfortunately, MMA math doesn't work here. Yes, Frankie got knocked out by Brian Ortega. First ever KO loss inside the UFC. So we know he has a button, but obviously that button is not very big if it took this many years for one person to find it. The dude obviously has chin for days, period. If only one person can find it, and he's been fighting in the UFC for, 15 years now or 16 years now? If only one person of all of these fantastic fighters can find that, I don't think Max is going to find it. To be honest, when he got knocked out, that's a puncher's chance knockout. You got lucky. You hit that itty-bitty tiny little sweet spot that I don't think anybody's going to find again on him. He's always had a fucking fantastic chin. Look at the war. Again, go back to the wars between him and Gray Maynard. Those two literally threw everything but the kitchen sinks at each other. But in this case here, I'm not going to say unfortunately, I will say this will be fight of the night, in my opinion. This fight right here, not because it's the champ fight, not because it's the main event, but because of who's fighting. This is going to end up being the fight of the night. The amount of volume that Max throws, the pressure that Frankie puts on, that's going to cause this to be fight of the night. Now, as far as prediction-wise, I don't think that even with all of his pressure, that fucking Frankie Edgar gets this done. However, I have been proven to be wrong before on this. So I'm open to the possibility that he can push through that initial slow start that Max Holloway always has. He is a slow starter. He picks up as the fight progresses. If he can push through that initial slow start and start dictating the fight early with all of his pressure, that's going to change Max's game plan. That's the only way he wins this fight. However, if he takes it to wait into the second round before he starts to try really pressuring, it's going to fuck him. He's going to lose the fight. In this case here, I don't foresee Frankie getting it done. As much as I would like to see him be a two-weight champion, I don't think this is going to be the time for him. Fortunately, he is champ. He will forever be known as a legend of the sport. He's put on some of the greatest wars you'll ever fucking watch. But unfortunately, I don't think he gets it done. I think this one goes to Max, and it's going to end up going to decision. Albeit, I think it will be a very close decision, closer than everybody thinks it will be. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say there's a possibility that this could even be a split decision. Purely on pressure alone, but we'll see. But I don't, unfortunately, think Frankie's got it in him to be a two-division champ. As much as I would love to see it, just because he is a fucking living legend that is still fighting at the highest caliber, but I just don't see it happening. This one goes to Max Holloway via decision. I don't think he's going to lay enough hands on him to put him out.
Yeah. So, first of all, yeah, this fight alone, like we talk about how the card is padded and everything like that. This fight alone is worth the at least the $50 ticket, or the $60 ticket for a pay-per-view if you're to pay it, I think. I love both these fighters. It's really hard for me to even think about who I would want to win, but I could think about who I definitely think is going to win. So the MMA math thing, I just wanted to I did hear this somewhere. So the MMA math thing with Ortega and Frankie, also Jose Aldo is the last guy to beat Frankie before Ortega, and Max Holloway has defeated him twice. So the only two guys to beat Frankie Edgar in the past couple years, Max Holloway is defeated. So Frankie Edgar is the closest thing I got to Eddie Alvarez, being from Jersey and on the same team, on Mark Henry's team, right? And besides Paul Felder, I mean, I got Paul Felder. He's still from Philly. So, but yeah, Max Holloway coming off that Dustin Poirier fight, that's good. Yeah, after fighting Dustin, a bigger man that fights like that, going through that fight, I don't see him losing to anybody right now. I think whoever he fights is pretty much fucked. But I do love Frankie. Actually, saying that, I think maybe going into it, I would be rooting for Frankie. Sometimes I say I don't care who wins and I don't know who's going to win, but usually then I go for the underdog. I'm like, all right, come on, Frankie. The odds are stacked up against you. Let's fucking go. Come on, get him. And then, like, when Frankie starts winning, I'm like, all right, come on, Max. Let's go. Let's get this back. So who knows, man? It's going to be a hell of a fight. I know that. I think they'll definitely get the bonus. I think the split decision is actually a good call. I didn't really think of that. If it's not, I mean, I could also see Max finishing it in like the third, like he did to Jose Aldo. I could see that. Frankie Edgar's just getting later in his years. So I guess we'll see. But yeah, it's going to be a fun one.
Absolutely, and I didn't even think about the Jose connection as well. That's right. The last two guys who have beaten Frankie Edgar both got just absolutely decimated by Max Holloway as well. So this, I mean, there's really, I think the reason that Jeff Neal might have made his 50 G's comment is because of this fight, because you really have to absolutely go out and do something spectacular to even beat the concept of what this fight represents on paper. So I mean, you know, best of luck, but I think Frankie and Max are going to put on a damn show. And, you know, I won't go so far as to say that I would absolutely say that it's worth the $50. I would say that watching Max and Frankie alone is worth the price of getting into Buffalo Wild Wings to see it. But I won't quite give them full card endorsement. But I will say this is absolutely a card that's worth paying $15 and having a beer at B-Dubs to watch this go down as well. But that's what we've got. That is the UFC 240 card, top to bottom. our picks and thoughts about the card. So that's where we're going to have to call it for this evening. So before we get out of here, I want to take just a moment and thank these two gentlemen for giving a little bit of their time. And now, even though, you know, Eddie has moved on and, you know, Paul's still around, but he's not. If somebody wants to get a hands-on tour of Fishtown and find out what makes that city so great, how are they going to get a hold of you, Nick Devine?
I got to give my address.
I mean, you know,
N.Divine83 on YouTube and Instagram. And thanks for having me. Fun as always. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit like and all that stuff. Subscribe. Don't be shy. All right.
So now on the other side of that coin, if somebody decided that they needed to know how they can find out the best spots in Green Bay to watch MMA, how are they going to be able to get a hold of you, TJ?
You can find me here Wednesday nights on the YouTube's 9:30 Central Time at Golf T Vapes. You can find me on the Instagram, email me, whatever, however you feel like you want to get a hold of me. You know, Wednesday nights are usually your best option, or if you're feeling really giddy, why don't you come and hang out with us on one of these live streams here? I'll talk shit to you in the chat while I'm talking shit here.
So thank you, gentlemen, both for your time. I do appreciate that. I can always get somebody to come in here and just help these folks understand why we love combat sports so much. And I do appreciate and value both you gentlemen's opinions here. We're going to call that all for this evening. So if at any point during our shenanigans here, some of our thoughts, some of our nonsense has made you giggle, gave you a chuckle, made you think about something that you didn't already have in your head when you got here, give us a thumbs up. Maybe subscribe if you want to see some more. Share this shit if we really tickled your funny bone. Tell your friends we're trying to grow this damn thing. But on the other side of that, if we just seem like a couple of dumbasses and a random casual talking out our asses, give us a thumbs down. We deserved it, and I won't dispute that in the least bit. But what I am going to say is we're done for this one here. So remember, you can root for anything. Don't let ignorance stop you. And it doesn't matter if you're cock a brown or you're cock a teal. Just fly on.
Everybody was kung fu fighting. Those kids were fast as lightning. In fact, it was a little bit frightening, but they fought with expert timing. There were funky Chinamen from funky Chinatown. They were chopping them up, they were chopping them down. It's an ancient Chinese art, and everybody knew their part. From a fainting to a slip, and a kicking from the hip. Everybody was kung fu fighting. Those kids were fast as lightning. In fact, it was a little bit frightening, but they fought with